Hi book lovers, and welcome to another little video where I will show you the latest spreads in my reading journal and talk a bit about the books. I only have 3 spreads in my journal from August, not because I didn't read much, but because I powered through a 13-book series that I'll tell you about once we get there. Here is my August cover page that you can see me set up at the end of my last video where I wrap up June and July. I love the late summer vibe I created here. First book I read in August is Long Way Home by Nicky James, one of her most recommended books, I think. It's supposed to be very angsty, so I haven't felt emotionally or mentally up to reading it before, but I finally got around to it now. It's about 2 high school sweethearts who are soulmates and so in love, but they are torn apart when their parents find out about them, and one of them is forced to enlist in the Marines and they lose touch for many years. It's a good book, but I had a little bit of a hard time understanding why they did not stay in contact or even try to seek each other out or write each other or something. I thought they had every possibility to stay connected, but it's like they chose not to until they are reunited as adults. It's a very long and bumpy ride for them to get to the happily ever after, but they eventually do. I gave it 4 stars. Next, I read On the Mountain by Hart. Hart is one of those authors that to me is so close, but not quite there to touch me deeply. On the Mountain is the best book I've read from her, though. I found the premise intriguing. This lone cult survivor who lives alone in the mountains on the old cult compound and is this wild, rugged mountain man who is almost self-sustained and only occasionally journeys into town. I thought this was a great, fascinating story that kept me interested throughout, set against the beautiful backdrop of the Colorado mountain wilderness. I gave this 4 stars as well. Next, we get to Criminal Intentions. It's a huge number of books divided into seasons, like a TV series, and each season is 13 books. I listened to season 1 in August and decided to make 1 spread for the whole season, or it would have taken up the rest of my journal. I was unsure how to do about the 13 covers, because if I printed them as I usually do, they would have taken up half the spread. In the end, I took all the audio covers and made 1 long strip in InDesign and printed it, and I like how it came out. It sort of looks like a washi tape strip, but when you look closer you can see all the details. Each book is between 5 and 8 hours long, so you get through them fairly quickly. It's about 2 Baltimore homicide detectives who solve 1 case in each book, but there is a red thread running through all the cases, and it's all connected to the spider at the center of the web. It's a new to me author called McCade, and I was impressed over how well written all the books were. He is a truly great writer. All the characters were very well written with different voices and deep personalities. It's multi-point of view, so we get to know a lot of them personally. We even get to know the victims, because the first chapter of each book is from their point of view and their last minutes alive until they are killed. The main characters are Malcolm Kalaji, a Persian Jewish, older, experienced detective, and Song Jae-joon, a North Korean escapee and former behavioral analyst for FBI. Despite both of their experience with violence, they still get to be two very vulnerable characters who are deeply affected by the death they encounter as homicide detectives. I like that a lot, how they were not stereotypical police detectives. I had to include the side characters as well because they were a big part of what made this series so great. We have Stenson, the medical examiner. We have Gabrielle, Malcolm's attorney ex-wife, Angeli, their boss, and Sade, the non-binary computer analyst, basically the Penelope Garcia of the series. I ordered these rub-on stickers with coffee and cupcakes just to use in this spread because Malcolm bakes a lot of cupcakes as an outlet for his stress. And then I totally forgot about them when I set up the spread, so I had to cram some in where there was room. I give this series as a whole 5 stars, and it's my top read in August. Here I am setting up my September cover page. My monthly pages don't serve any real purpose, I just enjoy making them as a creative outlet and to sort of mark the change of the seasons. I went with a bit of an old apothecary vibe and used some of these beautiful alchemy themed rub-ons I got for my birthday. They are so gorgeous and fun to work with. It's my new favorite thing. I started off September with Until the End of Time by Nicky James. It's one of her earliest books and an historical romance. I've seen mixed reviews on Goodreads about it, so I haven't dared spend an Audible credit on it, but I decided to give it a chance. As you can see, I gave it 5 stars, and I think I should just stop looking to Goodreads for advice on books and trust my own instinct. As Nicky herself says, it's not a perfect book or perfectly written, but it's a very deeply moving story about a 19th century magistrate who must sentence a man on trial for sodomy to death because that is the standard punishment back then. But he can't bear this man dying since he himself is just like him, so he stages a rescue and brings him home with him to be his manservant. And then you can figure out what happens. It's not perfect, but it's still a beautiful story. I thought Simon the magistrate was a bit clumsy and made some dumb mistakes that could have easily been avoided, but then there wouldn't be a story. But it had me sobbing towards the end, and that doesn't happen a lot. There was so much emotion here. I highly recommend this book if you enjoy historical romance. I included Lillian as well, my favorite character, without whom these two morons would have been lost. I hope she had a wonderful, amazing life because Simon and James were definitely in her debt by the end of the story. 5 stars for Lillian. Then some nonfiction. I don't read that often. If you have followed my videos, you might have picked up that I am a fan of true crime and I listen to a lot of true crime podcasts. I am definitely opposed to murder, but I love mysteries. And there is no greater mystery than what happened to Chris Kremers and Lisanne Froon in Panama in 2014. The last few years has seen a lot of new theories as a group of journalists dug into the case and pinned their deaths on some locals in a podcast called Lost in Panama. I'm not sure what I think about that, naming people like they do, but they did present some intriguing theories and scenarios. Still Lost in Panama by 2 German journalists is sort of the response to the podcast. The authors open the book by pretty much trash-talking everyone else who has ever dared to write anything about this case, and they go in with an attitude that sets up high expectations on them and implies that now we are finally going to find out what happened. Spoiler, we don't. Much of the book is dedicated to going through the police investigation and all documents, which is interesting if you're into this case and want to dive into all the technical details and the electronic trail these 2 women left. But in the end, I didn't think they really presented any real theories of their own, and the book left me with still more questions and no answers. I felt the purpose of it was to clear the locals, who were the focus of the Lost in Panama podcast, of any wrongdoing and show what wonderful people they truly are. And somewhere along the way, I felt Chris and Lisanne were sort of lost when they are supposed to be the main characters of this whole story. The authors concluded that the real tragedy on Pianista Trail is the sloppy investigative work and the accusations these specific locals have been subjected to and how it has impacted their lives negatively. 2 stars for Still Lost in Panama. I kept listening to Criminal Intentions Season 2 and made it to the 4th book before I realized there is no more audiobooks produced yet in that series. I really hope there will be soon. I dived into Cole McCade's backlog and listened to one of his most recommended books over and over again. The cover gives me werewolf daddy vibes, which isn't my thing, but I read the blurb, and it's a contemporary romance set on a goat farm in Yorkshire. It's a huge age gap story, 27 years. A father's best friend trope. I enjoyed this a lot. It's very relationship focused, and the majority of the 17 hours of audio is just the 2 main characters developing feelings for each other. Luca, the younger of the 2, is such a sweet, vulnerable, and kind of naive character. I like that he got to be a bit childish since he is only 19 years old and didn't act like this mature, old soul type of character. A very beautiful story, worth 5 stars. Then I got this historical fantasy by Sebastian Nothwell as a recommendation on Storytel. It's another new to me author, but it's narrated by Gary Furlong, who is my absolute favorite narrator. It's Victorian England mixed with the Fae and traveling through mushroom circles to the Fae realm. The Fae main character, Shrike, is named the Queen's Oak King at the beginning of the story, and the Oak King's fate is to battle the Holly King at summer solstice and hopefully kill him, which brings about the changing of the seasons. If the Holly King is victorious in that battle, winter will remain in England for another season until the next solstice, when the new Oak King gets a chance to defeat him. And so it goes on. It was a very long and slow story at 14 hours, and I felt each and every one of those hours. I'm not sure it really had to be that long. It had a lot of side characters that I had a hard time keeping up with, but still, the main part of the plot seemed to go into 2 of these side characters and their troubles, and how it affected the 2 main characters. And still, when the ending came, it came so sudden. I almost choked when Gary Furlong said, "This has been Oak King, Holly King, written by Sebastian Nothwell, narrated by Gary Furlong." Like, that's it? So what happens now? We are all left with that question. And that's it for the books I read in August and September. I'm going to set up my October page now, but I'm going to save that for my next video. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you soon. Oh, and if you haven't checked out my video about my Galaxies and Oceans special project, please do. Bye!